Chestnut wrapped some berries up in a torn piece of screen. She buried them under the porch so we wouldn't lose the seeds. 'Cause we all live downstream. We all live down.
Hello, everyone. So we're all the way up to episode number 15. This is so exciting. And I've got 2 more shorts in the works, including a conversation about bike rafting and pack rafting in the Northeast with Alejandro Strong, owner of Packraft Maine, and a conversation with guide Felipe Meneses about pack rafting in Ecuador. But back to episode 15. This was absolutely my favorite discussion interview of the year. I learned so much from Sarah Histand, owner of Mind and Mountain, and Jule Harle, owner of Alaska Packraft School, that I will be incorporating a bunch of new skills and techniques into my own packraft instruction in 2026. I know this episode is geared towards women and understanding gender differences in learning, teaching, and course creation, but I feel and hope it will resonate with my male listeners as well. Whether you're an instructor or a brother, father, husband, friend of a woman, you'll definitely learn something about how you can create safer spaces for those females you love to learn and thrive in the outdoors. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Onward.
Is the kind of vision for the topic to just generally talk about gender dynamics inside of packrafting world, or
gender dynamics more? I mean, in adventure sports in general, but then focusing on packrafting. I feel like packrafting is and isn't a microcosm of the greater adventure world, so I wouldn't mind talking about that too. And I feel like it's pretty different from kayaking paddling as well. So I'd like to, I think we could start more broadly, I guess, although I want to get a little bit on your backgrounds first. So I might switch back and forth between adventure sports and then specific to packrafting also, if that works for you gals. Does that make sense? Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah. And I read through the questions. I think those are great. And I think if there's other ones that come up, that's kind of, I think, the nature of having conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why don't we start by you gals introducing yourselves and telling me or telling the listeners a little bit about your background in adventure and in packrafting. And then we'll go from there. So Sarah, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I can start. I'm Sarah Histand, and I live here in Anchorage. I was born and raised in Alaska, and kind of like dabbled around with outdoor stuff, but in a very chill way as a kid, like little hikes and canoeing and things like that with my family. But started to get into more challenging stuff in my 20s, and I think I started packrafting, got my first packraft in when I was like maybe right around 30. I'd gone through like a really hard breakup and was like, I need a reward for like making it through this, and bought myself a packraft. And I remember I like really hadn't done any water sports before that, and got myself into some serious trouble like pretty quickly on the learning curve with some kind of close calls, and backed away, and I have been like kind of figuring out how to do it in a way that's fun and safe ever since. On the professional side, I have a mental health background, social work master's, and also a fitness background. So I have a online business that I run now that's like cross training for outdoor rec that weaves the mental health into the fitness work. And these days I'm really excited about somatic therapy and am doing a lot on that side of things too. So, and that all like weaves together into this conversation that we're about to have around like outdoors and interpersonal dynamics and gender and all that stuff. So excited to be here with y'all.
And Jule, how about you?
Yeah, Jule Harle, and it's a treat to be chatting with both Sarah and both Lizzy, just having some Alaskan and some lower 48 connections. So I'm so happy to be here. But I've been living in Alaska for 20 years, but I grew up in the Midwest in Iowa, and growing up I was very corn fed. I was actually like very overweight and not active or outdoorsy at all. And so I think a lot of coming into myself was discovering not just outdoor recreation, but trying to spend time in nature. So getting into water sports, right? Like Iowa, it's landlocked and there's not really any water recreation besides, flat water canoeing and beer drinking, and maybe some motorboating. So I was a summer camp counselor when I was 19 in Georgia, and I saw a whitewater kayak, and I, took my meager like $200 a week paycheck, and I bought it, and it wasn't the boat for me. And I went out without any instruction and had some swims. Didn't have like a spray skirt or a helmet on, like just really didn't know what was up. And that was really eye-opening, but also exhilarating. And I was like, wow, I found what I love, even though like I was like, wow, that whole day was a close call. But I drove up to Alaska to pursue college, and I had that kayak on top of my little Honda, and I ran into someone in Tok, and he's like, oh, you're a kayaker? I was like, well, not really, but I'd like to be. And so he gave me some people's numbers. And right, this is, I think, the time before social media and Facebook groups and things like that. So I cold called these guys, and they were so generous in like, helping me out, and, eventually becoming my friends. So and I was also, I think, the freshman young girl, like, I don't know anything about Alaska and I've got this kayak. So I feel really fortunate in that immediately I started off under really great mentorship, which is not what a lot of newer paddlers receive. And so I feel really, really lucky. And, the timing of how I discovered pack rafting, it was the next year. So it was in 2007, I took a pack rafting block course with Roman Dial. And just got my butt kicked, like in every which way. That was my first like backpacking trip in Alaska, combined with raft packing. And so that was a big 2 years for me, kind of, I think, entering into both those sports at the same time. And, I felt like I was so young and aggressive, and I'm very aware that I'm a small, petite female, and I was really, like, everything felt kind of hard as like a learner. But as a learner, but also trying to learn in Alaska. I feel like Alaska is a great place if you excel at whatever sport you excel at, but it's a challenging environment to learn a sport, whether it's skiing or boating or even backpacking. There's just, I think, more risks. So that was kind of my introduction to outdoor stuff, coming to Alaska Pacific University and finding the right people at the right time. But I started pursuing guiding a year or so later, mostly like teenagers, on short trips. But my background professionally, I was going to APU, Alaska Pacific University, for psychology. But it's interesting that love for nature. Like, I pursued work as a wilderness therapist. That being with people outside is really, I think, where my heart's been. And so the journey, right, starting in Alaska with these outdoor sports, getting my butt kicked, has really been, I think, the foundation for a lot of my teaching methodology, and kind of coming into these sports as like an insecure, unathletic female. And then the evolution over the last 20 years, with practice and with mentorship and with taking time. It's been fun to I feel like I'm not the person I used to be. And that's a big, big testament to finding mentors, the community, and, sticking with a sport, or sticking with, anything you're drawn to. So I do a lot of work now running the Alaska Packraft School. This was our 5th season, and I'm currently in New Zealand doing an international tour, where I found, though, for me, like, the bread and butter and the joy in life isn't in just like guiding somebody. It's in like, I don't want to just like show you, it's not like just follow me, but it's like, let me show you how to do it. So that's what I love doing with my time. And I still do a private, part-time mental health counseling practice when I'm not traveling or out there doing water stuff.
Well, thank you. It's interesting because I had a pretty different pathway than both of you gals getting into pack rafting. It was like accidental. I got a job at Alpaca, and Sarah Tingey's like, "Hey, you have to learn how to pack raft if you want to work here." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So she's like, "I'm gonna pay for you to take this women's Swiftwater course." Literally, the first time I got into pack raft, and the whole first day, I was like, I felt sick and I didn't want to be there. And then by the second day, I was like, oh, this is really fun. It feels much better because I had kayaked before, but I was terrible at it and it scared the shit out of me. And I finally quit after many years of continuing to try to do it because I was a climber and I was good at it. And I thought I should be good at kayaking too. And instead I hit a strainer in a really fast moving spring melt river and lost my boat and my paddle, and I quit after that. I was like, so anyway, I didn't really, but then I got into pack rafting because I worked at Alpaca, and then I was dating Doom, and I just like I had like a dozen mentors immediately, women and men. So I feel like, I just feel like my pathway to get into it was really different from you gals. The next question I have is, and I'm actually going to, the next question is about women and like the specific things that y'all have done with women's groups. It doesn't matter if it's pack rafting. I know, Jule, you've led retreats abroad, and Sarah, I know you've had women's programming. So can you talk to me a little bit, both of you, and maybe Jule, you can start this time with the courses that you've done specifically for women.
Yeah, and I kind of want to share how they started too, if you don't mind. Those guys that I met when I moved to Alaska, right? I ended up dating one of them. And so like I was always being taken care of. Like, what better person to save you than your class 5 boyfriend, right? And so no, seriously. And so I felt like I always had this like guide halo or boyfriend halo around me. And so it really enabled me to like level up, I think, quickly. But when we broke up, like this like fear I'd never known when I was on the water, like really fruited. And even though I know I could do it, I was just scared because in my head, I'm like, who's going to save me? And so just my whole, like how I viewed water and like my risk management and like my fear really elevated. So I went down lower 48. I was like, well, I just need to get better and get more confident. So I pursued opportunities where I could be on the water every day in less consequential environments. So for me, it was warm water in the Southeast. And so getting confidence and getting skills, and then really kind of seeing in the Southeast, there's so many lady boaters. Like there's just more paddlers in the Southeast. It's kind of like how skiing is to Colorado, whitewater sports are to that part of the United States. And so I felt like connected to a female community. There were rad boaters, there were new boaters, but there was so much transparency in their experience on the water. It was super inspiring. And I came back to Alaska and I'm like, where my ladies at? I was like, no, nobody. There's not a ton of boaters up here. That's okay. So I continued having primarily male partners for a long time. And I started working for other outfitters. This is, I think, well before the American Canoe Association endorsed packrafting as a discipline, and well before I think like Luke Mel's got really popular. His work with the Packraft Pacific Swiftwater Rescue, the culture of safety wasn't alive and well yet, and so I was kind of just making stuff up, but sharing what worked for me as an educator. But I really loved the connections I made with women who also had a similar story as mine. They felt like they were in this loving halo with their partner, but when their partner wasn't with them, they were scared. Or a lot of their male partners would have been more athletic and might have experienced less fear, and so their ability to meet them where they're at, like there was a disconnect. Where a lot of the women in courses currently with the Packraft School, but also in the early years, it was a lot of women who tried to get into packrafting. Their partner tried to show them the way. They got scared and were like, women's course, cool. I can hang out with other women, and we can learn together at a pace that feels more appropriate.
That's really funny because this summer I went and did like my crown jewel of my packrafting career, which is the Upper Animus, and I did not do it with Steve. And there were many reasons, but while on the trip, my cousin was on the trip, and he does trips with both of us separately and together all the time. And he's like, "Wow, you are so much more relaxed without Steve on this trip, and Steve is so much more relaxed when you're not on trips with us." And I was like, "Huh, that's so interesting." Because He gets so stressed out he worries about me on harder rapids like that. Cause especially when I had my bad back, he was like worried about me swimming. Cause and I get really scared, but it's like with rock climbing, I used to climb all my big things with women, and we'd like cry on the wall. Not all my big things. I had one really solid male partner. And sometimes I'd climb with the male partner and he would just be like, he knew me really well. So he's like, this is just something Lizzy has to do. But like women are just like, oh, sometimes we cry and it's not a big deal. But if I cry in front of Steve, he's just like, oh,
oh no, pull the fire alarm.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, Sarah, what kind of courses have you done specifically with women? And I know not Packraft, your training and other things.
Yeah, right. Because my training, so my online fitness training that has this mental health lens and outdoor rec focus is, I call it a women-centered space. So men are welcome, non-binary folks are welcome, but like we're trying to kind of intentionally make a space where it's women-centric, which is so different from so many of the other outdoor rec spaces. And I set it up that way. My arc came through doing some the Wilderness Classic is this backcountry, not really a race, but it's a challenge. Like you start in one place and then you have to get to the end and there's no route. You have to figure it out yourself. And there's a winter version and a summer version. And my brother and I did the winter version a couple times together when we were in that same kind of era. It was like after breakups and we were figuring out our lives. And I had heard about this event my whole life as it's like one of the most challenging things that in the like Alaska backcountry space. But I had only heard of men doing it. I think I don't know that I knew of any women who had ever done it. And so when we were like considering if this was something we'd be up for doing, I was super intimidated by that gender factor, just by like never having seen or heard of anyone like me doing it, and not considering myself to be like an ultra athlete either. So I was like, I don't know. But we did end up, like that first time we did end up making it to the end and had a really tough time, but it was really empowering too. And there were a couple other women out there on that course with me. And then we like learned a ton and went back the next year and had a much easier time. And it was one of my biggest like glass ceiling breaking moments where I like hadn't really thought that it was something I could even do. And then that second year we ended up like finishing at the front of the pack with this other like big group of people. So it went from like, can I do it, to like, oh my gosh, I can like absolutely do this. But I was realizing what a big factor it had, like a barrier it had been for me to have not seen other people like me in that space before. So as I started like setting up this like training space, I was thinking like, how can I help more people have that same sort of like experience that helps push their limits or reach these goals that they're wondering that they might feel like are out of reach, but come at it from a place of like feeling supported and also like in a community of other people that more closely like resemble them. So yeah, it's been really interesting. It feels like it opens up, because with training and mental health, like we're navigating all these like internal experiences of our relationship to ourselves, and so it feels like it helps make the experience feel a little bit safer, and it's more easy to like normalize the experiences that we're having. Like you all just talked about crying while we're out there, like the more we normalize that, the less shame there is when it happens, and the more we can just like be with it and keep going and still have a good time. And that's that experiences like that inside of a women's-centered space feels like we're able to like come and have community around these experiences that we might feel like we're like real weird if we're having them in isolation.
I'm curious, can you tell me the nuts and the bolts of how you made it a women's-centered space, your training sessions?
I just, I have some language about that on the registration page. So like, there's like an FAQ, like if men are men are able to do this. All my imagery is women and non-binary folks. The like color scheme, there's pink in there. There's like these kind of like cues that I'm trying to like put in there that aren't like necessarily saying it directly, but kind of cueing you to think like, okay, this is geared in a certain direction. And then I often get questions from guys who are like, can I really do this? I don't want to take up too much space. They're often like really checking to see if it's okay. And then my answer to that is that they're welcome to be there and to be present, but want to keep the space centered around the women's experience. So I need them to be like conscientious about how much space they're taking up inside if they're like active in the community. Most people are pretty good about that.
That's cool.
I think it's really cool. Like men are welcome to attend, and I've had conversations with like, am I being exclusive in these offerings by saying it's only this and not this, and so I think like that has a potential to do a disservice. If it's like, no, men's over here, women's over here, where I think there's a time and place for everything. But I think that's so beautiful. Like it's not women's only. It's women centric. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a new concept that I hadn't thought of, actually. That is a really cool idea. Well, I'm going to move to the questions. Oh, sorry. I'm going to put my computer on focus so I don't get any more messages. Okay, so I know there's no black and white answer to this. And, I'm talking to, I almost invited Annie, one of my guides, to join us, but she said she has that experience where she's better at sports than her husband. And she's always been like very included and welcomed, especially in the packrafting community, and feels like there's not any different. I mean, she understands that there are differences in how women and men learn and that sort of thing, but she hasn't had the experience like maybe I have, and a lot of women have. So I know it's not black and white, but in general, are there some general male versus female dynamics in adventure sports, and especially in packrafting, that you two have noticed? And maybe let's start like with adventure sports in general, and then focus in on packrafting. And either of you can start.
Yeah, can I start? Is that fine?
Yeah, go.
And two, I love that these are generalizations and what we see often. They're not, that's how I got the word stereotype, and there's always exceptions and outliers. So I hope no one, feels like offended, or, if they don't identify with what I'm about to say. What I've seen generally and very often is that whether it's especially in entry-level sports, women might take more calculated risks, and that like age-old phrase, work smarter, not harder. And I saw this a lot when I was raft guiding. It's just like fact. I am not as strong as anyone else I worked with, being like a petite female on a raft guide company. And so my strategies and techniques needed to be different, because I was like physically unable, right, to yard the raft with 6 passengers off the rock. Like I just cannot do that. And so the ability, though, for me to communicate with my team and get them to do paddle strokes or move around the boat, so we got off the rock together. Like I didn't have like He-Man strength to do those things. So I've seen, as a generalization, women invite more strategy and learning more strategy at the early levels, because we can't always rely on strength. There might not have as much strength as a lot of men out there. And what I've seen a lot, and this isn't wrong or bad, but men like He-Manning with He-Man strength, their way through things. And the technique, the longer you do anything, your technique will come, but not like relying on technique, or maybe being as interested in it at the beginning. And two, I think anyone can be a kinesthetic learner, but I see a lot of kinesthetic learning, especially in men. They want to do it and see, feel it. And not have it be explained or taught or shown a lot of the time. That's been my experience.
Cool. Interesting. And you, Sarah?
So interesting, Jule. It was really cool to hear. Yeah. I think, with this way I'm running my business with women-centered training, there seems to be a bigger interest in women to do more of the preparatory work, the cross training, and the maybe even taking classes. It seems to me inside of the female community that there is this sort of openness toward learning from other people, and the desire to want to feel more prepared rather than going in and like learning it on the go. That's maybe what you're talking about with like the experiential learning that maybe some men feel more available for. I wonder if that doesn't come from this, like, oh gosh, this gender conditioning that we've all been exposed to inside of like patriarchy. And like, even if we're trying to break free of all of that, it feels like from super early ages, it's so common to like see boys encouraged to just like go do stuff and like crash and fall, like learn through like making mistakes, and to see us like be really different with little girls and being like, be careful and like make sure you're just kind of teach from super early ages that they need to be cautious, and maybe like in unintentionally probably, but like passing on this sense of like vulnerability or fragility. So I don't know. I think we're kind of often inside of like working with women, often trying to recoup that sense of like, can I be, it's true that there are risks out here, but how can I also connect with my strength and courage and fortification? So I feel like, but there seems like there's often an openness with the people that I end up working with, though, to try to tackle those things, both from a strength side and also like a mindset side.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've witnessed this. So for me, being an educator for 2 decades, I've seen like a shift in like both of those dynamics, where I think there is a lot of like female empowerment and discover your strength and build confidence and you can do it. And then I've also, seen, like more male learners like want to learn more strategy and technique. So even in the 20 years, I've seen these kind of like opposing gender traits work more towards the middle, and everybody embodying more of both. I don't know if you've seen that too.
Honestly, that's funny because as both of you are talking, I have so many thoughts going on in my head, because I feel like when I was in my early 20s and learning how to climb, I did take courses and I did want to learn how to do things, and I had mentors, but I also just like went and did stuff and scared the shit out of myself numerous times, and like almost died a few times, and then shifted. And with packrafting, it's like the opposite. I just take it so slow. I'm in no hurry. I want to really understand like how to go through a class 3 rapid, know my line, know where the eddies are, know where any of the dangers are. Like I want to know before I go, like as much as possible, so that I have as likely a chance to make it through, or if I don't make it through, to know where I can get out safely. And I feel like that's come with some age and experience. So I guess I think this is really multifaceted. I think it depends. But I also see with my business, I don't know about you, Jule, but most of our clients, we have like half women, and not quite half women and men, but almost half women and men. And I know that the packrafting community is way more male than female, but we have a lot of women. And a lot of them are older, mostly probably because the courses are expensive and they can't afford, younger folks can't afford it. Yeah, but a lot of women like my age, or like between 35 and 60. So, sorry. Anyway, I feel like this is so multifaceted. I mean, do you guys think age has a difference too, and that's reflective more in packrafting?
Big deal. Yeah. And, I think adventure styles and learning styles, it's like well beyond gender, right? There's so many things that go into it. And before you had said like, maybe it's age. And for me, like I was more aggressive 20 years ago, and I did take less calculated risks 20 years ago. And, I think there's some age that comes in wisdom, the knowing your limits. And also, like for a lot of, especially women, I'm not sure about males, but your amygdala grows as you get older. And that's the part of your brain that senses and interprets and processes fear. And so I think there's, it's like twice as big after someone gives birth. Like protect the baby, everything is a threat. It's really interesting. But I think right, for most folks, as we get older, we have a higher level of self-awareness, and I think our physical abilities. And so I've noticed, as just with age, there is more calculated risk and like attention to detail. And I'm a little bit less, I use the word aggro and gung-ho. I still feel strong, but my approaches feel different than they did 20 years ago, for sure.
Do you think that leans more heavily female or male, or do you think that's like across the board with females and males?
I think it's both genders. I think it's everybody. What do you think, Sarah?
Well, I mean, I feels to me like there's some accuracy there too in recognizing vulnerability and that like our physical abilities change as we age too. So there's some of that that's just like, well, if I were to fall right now, it might like impact my body in a really different way than it did when I was 20. So I have to have a little bit of a different calculus with risk as I'm aging. And so I don't know, some of that might be brain related and some of it might be like some accurate read on what our capacities actually are and still figuring out ways to be out there even as
And I'm not
abilities
on my
change.
mom's healthcare anymore.
What did you say?
But when we were young, we were on our parents' healthcare.
Oh.
Like, it's like, man, now I have to pay for it, and it will take longer to heal. And I've been injured, and I know how much that sucks.
Well, let's move on to or actually, do you think there are other male-female dynamics that we haven't talked about? Like Sarah, have you noticed male-female dynamics in your business? Well, actually, how long have you had your business for?
It's like 12 years old, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you have had to see changes. What are some of the dynamics and have you seen changes in the past 12 years?
That's not really something I've been tracking. It's really interesting. I notice, I mean, there's been like huge amount of changes in who's willing to do online training because of course it like blew up really big during COVID. And then now like less and less people are like seeking out ways to train that particular way to train. But yeah, gender dynamics. I mean, I certainly track that inside of my personal relationship. I mean, so Luke Mel is my husband, and he's like definitely like an experienced packrafter and super into the safety side of things, and also a really big whitewater guy. And I'm not so much into the whitewater side of things. I do a lot of packrafting on our long remote trips, but it tends to be like more like class 2 or maybe like 3- stuff so that we can do remotely without a ton of risk, which is like right where I like it to be. And so, I mean, that those dynamics between us have changed quite a lot over the years, because I think when we like first started dating and I came in like being a pretty new, like fairly new to the water scene, and he was already like a really experienced boater. And so we kind of like initially set up this dynamic inside of our relationship of him being the one with like lots of expertise and me being the one who was like learning alongside. And then for me, it was like kind of easy to extrapolate from that water dynamic into other aspects, like other parts of our outdoor time. And I, at one point, realized that like I was defaulting to following his lead in the parts of our trips that we're hiking and the parts that we're skiing, and like that it was kind of easy to fall into that, like he's got all the experience and so I'm just follow his lead. But then like sometimes we'd get into situations where I'm like, how did we end up in this situation? Like I'm pretty sure this is not ideal. Or like I'm thinking about like a hiking in the Arctic trip where we ended up on this like really steep like talus descent where all the rocks were loose, and I was like, why are we going this way? And realized that I had fallen into the default of like following this line that he had drawn without like looking around and being like, there's a way better route right over here. We should definitely take this instead. And had to kind of we had to renegotiate the way we were doing that, because there's that kind of default of following his lead because he has experience in some areas, but we're actually really well matched in the hiking area, and maybe I even have more experience in that realm. And so I had to kind of figure out how to step back into more of a decision-making role there, and get in practice of like using my own voice rather than just like stepping back into the following role.
So you made a conscious effort to do that. I'm curious, like what that looked like, how long it took, and what you did specifically to take on more of a role.
Yeah, well, that particular descent was for sure a game changer, because I started out on that feeling like like I was struggling on this descent and I didn't know, and I like felt a lot of like shame about it because I was going slower than him, and why are we going here? And then after some time, because it took some time to get down this like crappy talus slope, I came around to realizing that he had like, he's going faster through this, but like maybe my slow, steady pace was actually a bit safer, like because I was actually able to test these rocks that were moving and big enough that we just surely didn't want to like get trapped in between them. And so it kind of came around to being like, there's some wisdom in the way that I do this, and I need to kind of come back into trusting that. And then also recognizing that default of following versus like there was a decision point up above that descent where I could have like caught that and voiced it earlier. So now we're when we do route planning, we do a lot more of that together. That's been something we've like intentionally make time to do before a trip, to look over where we're going together. And then we're just way more practiced these days at like when we're at a place where there's like different things you could do, different ways you could go, to come together and be like, this is what I see, like, and come to a group consensus on that rather than a default of following one person's way.
I love that. I feel like that's super valuable for women and men, not just between men and women, because always to have everybody be empowered with the knowledge, I think makes your whole group stronger, really, and makes it, I mean, that doesn't always make the decisions better, but if everybody can contribute and say, I'm comfortable with this, I'm not comfortable with this, or the level of comfort, that sort of thing, I feel like it's beneficial for like all groups of people. Jule, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I can tell. I'm like, woo, wait for it. No, and I'm actually working on interrupting. Like I'm an interrupter, and so I get so excited, and I'm so excited to share. But I'm like, wait for it. Thanks for noticing.
Yeah, tell me.
No, so I think too, like being like being an educator and being a guide, like even on personal trips, it's like my friends call me Alpha Jule, like behind my back. It's just like, I'm not bossy. I just feel like I have better ideas. No, that's not true. I love hearing other people's ideas and integrating everyone's ideas into a trip plan. But I've noticed sometimes with friends, they're like, oh, Jule figured out the route, or oh, we'll just take Jule's line, or oh, Jule figured it out. And I'm like, no, guys, like we are a team, and I would like everyone to know what I know. Or also, because I've messed up routes before, and I've accidentally taken, a 2-day bushwhack there was a better route, and, some help in figuring it out would have been awesome. But even like backcountry skiing, I got this idea from a friend, like, okay, I nerded out, and I know I dug a few pits yesterday, and I've been following the snow report, but reading like the Abbey report before we go skiing to everyone in the car, like, hey, like giving them the information that I have, or right now in New Zealand, I'm paddling a lot of new runs with folks that have also not been on them. And so sharing, right, whether it's on the shuttle or as we're walking in, this is all the information I have. This is when I think we're going to make decisions. What do you think? And I'm really big into like, how do you feel about that? Where lots of times I've been at the top of a rapid and I'm going to run it, but I just want everyone to know I'm like so scared. Like, I am not very confident right now. I think I can do it, but I feel a lot of fear. And so I think that the communication with the pre-trip planning, and while you're in doing the trip, but also like your space while you're doing the objective, your emotional space is like really great in being transparent throughout.
And I do feel like, and I don't know, maybe you all can reflect on this a little bit, but I do feel like, at least what I've noticed just in my interactions with my male and female clients, is that women tend to not want to step up always. I mean, the women who come on our courses, they do want to learn, but a lot of times it's more challenging for them to step up and own their voice. I think maybe to me that seems to be, even now, I mean, back when I started rock climbing, absolutely 100%. And it is changing, but I do still feel like that's challenging for women. Or like we have a whole female board for my Armida Huerta Adventure Fund. And there were women who were like apologizing when we met them and sort of initiated our first 6-person board. And, oh, I'm talking too much. And we're all like, no, you're not talking too much. We want to hear what you have to say. We're here to get to know each other. So you're not talking too much, right? So anyway, do you guys want to reflect on that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, for me, I'm like, I look at all this stuff from a nervous system lens so much, and there are these different defaults inside of the nervous system. And one of the primary ones that it like over indexes for women is the fawn response. And like for a long time, fight and flight and freeze were the ones we knew about, and fawn wasn't even one that like was researched for so long because they were only researching on men. And this whole like major response inside of the nervous system wasn't even like something we were aware of until more recently, when we started to see it as like one that primarily happens inside of a female nervous system. And that's like the response to prioritize social connection over individual needs, and to access safety through group cohesiveness, and to like go towards something that's like off and help the other person calm down through using your own nervous system to help them like feel better. So, I mean, there's just a lot of, and maybe it has to do with estrogen and like child rearing, and like there's like a lot of theories as to why that is so heavy inside of the female nervous system, but it absolutely is something that we see stronger for women, and that like is a physiological response that makes like saying that you have a different opinion more challenging, because it has like that quality of kind of threatening the social cohesiveness. So like that's a big part of my work, I think of too, is like figuring out how to helping people feel safe enough inside their own bodies that they can respond differently, and instead of being stuck in a default like safety response, which might mean like I can't say what I think because I need to feel safe in a group without saying things, like figuring out ways to help us break through that freeziness inside of the system and actually like get your voice out into the conversation. That all, to me, that has a lot to do with like the way we access safety and the sense of like can we feel safe enough physically in our bodies to like do something that can be a little bit scary sometimes, by like saying something that may or may not be what everyone else agrees with.
Maybe
that is so cool. I've never heard that before, but it makes so much sense. That's so wow.
And maybe that's why so many women seek out so much education and training, because then they can be really grounded in the knowledge, like not just their experience, but the knowledge, and then their experience based on that knowledge, and then more knowledge. It's like a positive cycle. Because I do feel more comfortable speaking out now in packrafting, that I've learned so much over the past 8 years. That's so interesting. Wow.
Yeah, totally. Because it's like easier to speak when you feel like you have confidence in what you're saying. It's not just a personal opinion. It's something I learned somewhere. Though, like more and more, it'd be great if we could trust our opinions are enough too.
Yeah. There's this yoga saying, I love it a lot, but it's get out of the head and into the heart. Like a lot of this, right, this emotion or this intuition or this feeling, there's a lot of wisdom there, and our like intellect can rationalize and overanalyze, and in the heart, right, my heart's not insecure, but my thoughts can be insecure, and so like that can like override this thing I feel like deep down to be true. So it's just a little like that, some of that yoga lineage I think really resonates with me. But I'm wondering, so this fawn concept, fight, flight, or fawn, like I've never heard of that before, and I'm kind of like, just so many light bulbs went off. It's so cool, and I wonder, as my friends are always joke, they're like, Jule, when are you gonna like start teaching men's courses? And I'm like, well, when we find a male instructor that's stoked about them. But there doesn't seem to be like the need. There can't. I bet there is a need, but they don't seem right, you don't see a lot of like male only courses or learning environments as like we see such a right, how popular the women's ones are, but that fight, flight, or fawn, and I think that nervous system difference that really kind of makes, I don't know, just a lot of light bulbs went off, like why there might be more women-centered learning environments versus male-centered learning environments in the outdoor industry.
Yeah, like generally the outdoor industry is a male-centered space, so we don't need specific classes necessarily for that. But I think that one of the benefits of a women-centered space is that it can help that fawn response feel less intense, and we can practice like voicing different needs and in an environment that feels like a little bit safer because we have that gender dynamic is less out there. And I also want to like name here that like these similar dynamics here play out racially too. So like we're three white women here talking about like what it means to be engaging with these dynamics inside of gender, but like absolutely people of color also like not super represented in these spaces, and also have that default of a fawn response when engaging with like up power whiteness inside of these spaces. So that's like that's why it's like, yeah, these women-centered spaces or BIPOC-centered spaces can be really helpful for helping like free us from some of those patternings that we develop for good reason for engaging with more dominant groups.
With your work doing somatic stuff, like, do you know if that fawn does it change as we age too, like within nervous systems?
Well, there is a shift in it with menopause because of the way we lose estrogen. And estrogen is one of those hormones that promotes us to prioritize our social connections. And so as you lose estrogen, there's less emphasis, like that's one of the things that can feel really freeing for women out in that transition, is like, now I actually don't care so much what other people think, so I just get to like say what I want. And like there's some really nice things about that.
That's so interesting though, because society so badly and so desperately tries to make women after 50 invisible. So it's really interesting because I mean, I don't feel invisible personally, but I know one of my really good friends was fired from being an athlete basically a few months before she turned 50. She was on the North Face team and she was fired. And they said it was because they wanted to bring more people of color onto the team, but they still had like 17 or 18 older white males on the team and only three women. So it's like trying to erase, maybe women come into their power. I mean, I like them to come into their power earlier, and my goal would be to empower women at all ages, but maybe it's easier to come into your power when you're in your 50s and 60s or your 40s even. So that's so cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing. This is really an interesting conversation. I had no idea what direction it would go. Can we go back real quick to I just want to touch on the BIPOC angle just briefly, because I have a nonprofit now, the Armida Huerta Adventure Fund, and we provide packrafting scholarships to women of color and queer folk. And I think that in a year, it would be cool to have a conversation, because all the women, except for one on the board, have now tried a packrafting course through Four Corners Guides. And I want, and they're all hopefully all going to take more courses this next year. Well, actually, one hasn't, but she will be taking a course this next year. And maybe it would be cool to have another conversation in a year and bring a couple of them on board and have you gals back. So just because I don't know how to speak to that since I'm white, but I would like to plant that seed.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. It's so cool that's happening, and yeah, I'd love to hear from them.
Yeah, I just make the plug so that we can keep like bringing a little bit more diversity into packrafting. And Jule, I've seen though that you have it seems like you have quite a diverse group of people. Like I've noticed women of color and queer women and non-gendered. What's the word? Shit, I just forgot the word.
Gender binary?
Non-binary. Thank you, folks, on some of your courses. And actually, can we talk a little bit specifically about your packrafting courses and gender dynamics within the packrafting courses, and maybe what you've seen with the non-binary and the women's courses, and how people interact in courses like mixed courses and then separate and just focused courses on women or non-binary folks?
And inherently, I've found in all the courses, the Packraft courses, so again, it's less of a guiding operation. We do some guided tours, but for folks that have their own gear and they're aspiring to become their own guide and navigate wild and remote rivers in Alaska. But we have courses geared towards the never ever. We start off on a lake and we go to class 1. We've got a course we call Whitewater Essentials, getting folks what they need to know to, sometimes I say safe is a fake word, right? All these sports are dangerous, but as safely as possible, right? Ride grade 2 rivers and have the skill set to build from there. And then we do some intermediate and advanced skills coaching where folks are getting more aggressive in their whitewater, and they've had a lot of safety training. They have proficient self-rescue, but they're really trying to elevate their technical skills. And then we also do swiftwater rescue. So there's a lot of diverse stuff. We do a lot of custom. I do half of our work's not on the website. It's just custom requests for groups. And so all across the board, whatever anyone's learning, wherever they're from, whatever their age is, I've found though to be almost this feeling oh, we're a family for the next 3 days. We're doing this together, where there's this common goal. And I think too, it's it's easy to feel like that when it's okay, I'm mom, or I like what Luke says, I'm mother duck. So it's we have identified mom, and here's the assistant, that is dad. And then, and there's a lot of faith and trust. And then there's, it's the siblings all supporting each other. And so I feel there's these little micro families, whatever the courses are. So they're really cool. And I see this especially in the women's courses, but in all the courses, they kind of turn into friend farms, which is so cool, right? Because most of their pack rafting is going to be without me, but creating space so folks can find each other and continue living the dream and getting on the water. A big reason, so I love teaching all the courses, but I've got a special spot in my heart for women's courses. And I think, and I mentioned this on an earlier podcast with Lizzy, there's the part of our brain that processes experience through speech, where whether it's hearing it and then repeating it, the actual talking it out, it can be up to twice as big in a female versus a male, where I find in the courses, especially when they're all female or all women, folks are more inclined to voice their fear, and they want to hear about the technique and explain it back to you. And that seems to be such a strong part of the learning process, where in co-ed courses, I see that a little bit less. It's still alive, but a little bit less. But there's this cohesion and celebratory nature that I can't put words into in these women's courses. I always joke, I'm these are kind of like bachelorette parties. They're just so fun. And so I don't know, those are some of the biggest things I can say and attest to it. And I think too, there are so many dynamics in Alaska where, similar to what Sarah was sharing about her experience out recreating and exploring outside with Luke, is it's so easy to go into these gender roles. And I think the women's courses, it's an opportunity for them to break free of their gender roles, whatever their gender roles are, or redefine them. And a lot of the women have partners, a lot of the women don't have partners, but I think whether their partner does the sport or not, they're looking for friends and for people to float with.
As you were talking, I wonder if Alaska Packrafting School being a woman-owned business, I wonder if you are part of the reason that these groups feel like family. I mean, you have to be part of the reason that these groups feel like families, because you establish you, and then all the people that train with you, they learn from you. And so you sort of established I wonder if the paradigm of your teaching is different from, say, a male-owned business that mostly has male guides or male, I just don't know. But it seems like, just the way you talk about, well, these are like families, they're like many families that come together. That seems stereotypically pretty female.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But maybe it wasn't a conscious thing, but it sounds like, Sarah, you were really more conscious in making yours a women-centered space. So I feel like with Four Corners Guides, there's a mix of it, because I have Doom, who like does most of the trips, but then I do all the communications with people, and I try to bring people to the ranch, and we establish these long-term relationships with people. And it also feels very much like a family, and the groups that get together also feel very much like, a lot of them Packraft have for years together now, and go on bigger trips together. And so I guess that's a topic for a different podcast, but it would be interesting to do some studies on how women-led businesses in the outdoor industry differ from male-led businesses. So
yeah,
so
I think it would be super interesting. And I mean, I just feel like, as an Alaskan here, having watched Jule take the lead with the Alaska Packraft School, I think it really has shaped the Alaska packrafting scene here and helped make it feel more just like normal that women are out there doing this thing. Because it's like, Jule's one of the leaders here locally, and it's so obvious that like there's no question anymore about if women do this or not. It's just like, well, yeah, there's Jule. It's really cool. It's had a big ripple, I'd
Now,
say.
thanks for saying that, because I didn't feel that way 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's a big shift then from 20 years ago to now.
Well, there's also, I mean, the sport, I wouldn't say it's women-centric, but with Sherry Tingey being the grandmother and the designer of the modern day packraft, I mean, yeah, sure, other companies have made good packrafts, but she is the definitive leader in the industry. And she is the only woman who has so altered a sport, like so drastically in the outdoor adventure scene, right? I mean, I can't think of anybody else. It's all men. So Sherry's she's like a pioneer and a role model for all of us. And she was a good boater.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I do want to ask a question. I'm curious, so I've had this question come up numerous times from clients, like a male and a female partner. Generally the male, they want to do a course together. Maybe they should do one separately. They don't know. Generally the male has more experience. He's been out more times. Maybe he doesn't have more education, but he's just been out more and is more gung-ho. This is what I typically see. I don't generally see, every once in a while there's a woman with more experience, but generally it's the male. So should they take a course together? Should they take a course apart?
I encourage them to train together or take course together, but honestly, when I get couples, I put them in separate groups. No, seriously, and until they've both like gotten some proficiency in the skills on day 3, I might put them, because we switch up groups every day, but I'm intentionally kind of separating them. So no one's kind of, I think, overriding the other. Or 2, right, it's going to take away from any partner's experience if they're worried about the other one. And yeah, that's great. That's a great trait in a trip partner. I love my partner, Pete, and I'm worried about him. He's worried about me. We actually came into pack rafting and whitewater independently. And so we didn't learn together. And so I think there's a lot of beauty in we do a lot of breakout subgroups, but separating partnerships, right, for that 1 or 2 days. And then on the last day, bringing it back together so they can practice and train with each other.
Because there's benefits to practicing together, because they'll
Yeah. And I'm a big, whoever you go boating with, when you take a Swiftwater Rescue or a skills course with them and train with each other, like that's so valuable.
What do you think, Sarah?
I mean, I think that's a great answer. I'm all on board with what Jule said. And then it probably wouldn't hurt if the person with less experience wanted to do some like gender specific classes. That can be really confidence inspiring too. So there's the benefit to training with your partner who you'll be with. And then if you're feeling like kind of behind in the learning curve, then like getting some space where you can like get some practice with being a little bit more with your peers, and the practice like using your voice and doing it in an environment that's maybe a little bit easier to do that in. That's where those like gender specific courses could kind of support that co-ed learning space.
And thank you. I have one more question. I just want you gals to reflect on something that happened to me, because I still haven't quite figured out what to think of it. then I'll ask like one final question after that. But I had this experience. So I taught my first level 3 women's course. I did it for free. I did it for a couple were friends and a couple were just acquaintances. And I'm just trying to get my level 4 Packraft instructor certification. So I wanted to get some practice teaching a higher level stuff. So the day was amazing. We had such a good time. But at the end of the day, we finally did surfing. Sometimes I'm really good at it. Sometimes I suck. I'm just not very consistent with surfing, and teaching surfing, it was like, for me, the scariest part of the whole day. I knew I was going to do it, but I was just like, oh, and of course we're doing surfing and I'm teaching the ladies, and this friend of a friend comes paddling down, and he's a really good kayaker, and he sees me and I'm like, yeah, I'm teaching a course. And he's like, oh, cool. But he sort of wasn't really paying attention to me. And then he starts to tell one of my, I had told my client something specific to do when she was entering the rapid, or entering the wave, and he started to instruct her. And I was like, it was a really weird feeling because I was already tired. I was already nervous about teaching surfing, and then he started to teach her, and I just like talked over me, and I was just like, it was so deflating. And then I went and surfed, and then of course I swam, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. And it was the end of our course anyway, so it was, but I felt like the course ended. I was really disappointed with how the course ended. I'm sure that they're stoked and I should ask them, but the end, I literally felt really deflated. And like, what do you do in that situation? I mean, he was just being a nice guy, but it was like a bit of mansplaining, and it was irritating. And yeah, so I just wanted you gals to reflect on that. Any thoughts? Like, I mean, I'm not going to say anything to him, but
I think that's in play parks where folks give the most solicited or unsolicited advice, regardless of gender, is somebody at a surf wave. And no, seriously, is everyone's hanging out in the eddy, and I want to make this sticker that just says, not how I do it. Like kind of a rap guide saying, not how I do it. But it's I wonder if that has to do with anything gender related at all, right? Or if that guy is just like, oh, I have a tool to help and I'm eager to share. Like that's what it feels like. I don't know, it sounds like terrible timing for you, like, the like insecurity around that topic, and it's the end of the day, and then I guess I'm just gonna swim right now too. Like I've been in that same space, and I feel like I know what you're talking about. And it's funny, it's like, so addressing stuff like that too without making a big deal. Right? Because it's like, is this going to kill the vibe? Is this person going to get defensive? This sounds kind of passive. I think I would have let it ride out. And then if the guy was being annoying and wouldn't stop, like I think I would have brought something up or just gone to a different eddy and then came back, which sounds kind of like escaping. But yeah, that's a tricky one to navigate. It's tricky.
Gosh, I feel like I'm sorry it happened to you, honestly, Lizzy. Like that sounds like really deflating. And when you're trying to like build up your confidence as an instructor, it's like the worst, not the worst, there's worse, but like definitely a less than ideal situation. And yeah, whether or not he was conscious of those gender dynamics, I mean, some of the way that patriarchy works is that by creating blind spots for men to like, they're just like not having to track gender as much as we are. So it's like possible that was like something his body was reacting to, as far as like, I know what to do here. And like coming at it from a gendered perspective, even without being consciously aware of that. And even good guys do that, and like, and similar to like, as white people, like even best intentions, like are going to step in it sometimes because we have these blind spots. So I don't know. I think like you're saying, like how to engage with it without like causing a thing. I mean, maybe it's okay to sometimes cause a thing and like have the like let them guy feel a little uncomfortable because like they did kind of step in it, and they're mansplaining even if they didn't mean to, and even if it's coming in with well and good intentions. Like the nervous system access point there, like we're having to access a little bit of like healthy aggression would be a term for that. A little bit of like boundary setting energy, which is like kind of can be a tricky energy to access, especially if you have that kind of fawn default. But it's really useful inside of outdoor rec in general, because we do kind of need that like protector energy inside of us, both for like going through hard rapid and also for like engaging interpersonally. I mean, I wonder what like if that like I have that kind of freeze response too, and it'd be hard for me to do it in the moment, but I feel like I'm working toward wanting to be able to be like, hey dude, we're in class here and like I'm the teacher, like this is a women's space, like have a good day, bye. Like just getting like any sort of words out or like in those situations can feel really good. I wonder what that like sometimes when I experience those deflating moments, it's because I didn't say something that I wanted to say. And so I'm in that practice now of like saying something, even if it's messy and even if it creates a little like kerfuffle, and like doing that just as a personal practice of like, I got to practice getting my voice into these moments.
Yeah, no, I like that, and I appreciate it, because I I really feel like I had this container and we were all in this container, and then right at the end, instead of like finishing as a container, it sort of went like that, and that was what was so disappointing and deflating for me. And so yeah, I do feel like moving forward, I could probably just say, hey, I'm teaching right now, and it's interrupting by you're interrupting by mansplaining, so just if you don't mind, just back off. Maybe I feel like I would have felt better had I said that, because I feel like I would have maintained the container with the ladies. So thank you both for. Yeah,
I want to say too that like there really is work to do on both sides here, because like you taking the work on of like getting yourself to say something in those situations, that's an emotional labor effort toward like figuring out how to like overcome that fawn response or in that moment. But if there are men listening who are like conscious of these situations, and like there's for sure work to be done on that side of things too. And like honestly, that's where the majority of the work ideally would land, because if like men can become conscious of the gender dynamics that they're stepping into, that'll really help ease the way these experiences land. And he might have missed that one, but maybe if he's listening now, we'll like be more conscious next time of like, who am I stepping into? And maybe having some awareness that like women need the like an extra kind of bubble of space to be leaders and to work together in these spaces. And it's like a good time to practice asking if you want my advice versus just offering it without getting consent first.
Yeah, I love that. I hope men listen to this podcast too.
Yeah, I do too.
Are there any final questions or anything I didn't ask either of you that you feel is important to share about this subject? I feel like we could talk for another hour easily, but it's been an hour and 20 minutes, so I don't want to keep you too long, or 10 minutes. Anything that I'm not asking you that you want to share with me?
This is great. I feel like we covered it a lot. I'm sure, like you said, we could keep going, but it feels pretty complete for now.
Yeah. Whether you're male or female or whoever, if you desire to go play outside, right, go do it. One of my mantras in that is keep it fun, and it's not always about getting better. But it's about playing outside and having a great time. And so setting yourself up, whether it's taking a course or finding resources or rallying a crew, it's just exciting to see more women, not just women, but more of everybody playing outside.
And Sarah, where can we find you online? And I will put your website and all that stuff in the show notes.
Yeah, mindandmountain.co is my business site, and I'm on Instagram, which is my name, Sarah M. Histand. Feel free to reach out there and say hi if you listened here and had something that you wanted to talk about. I'd love to have conversations.
And Jule, where can people find you online?
Online, it's alaskapackraft.com. And the social medias, I'm Alaska Packraft. And I'm also on the leadership team for the Packraft Film Fest. So I'd love it if there was like some women's film, or like ladies on the water. We didn't have a submission like that last year, but Packraft Film Fest in Alaska Packraft. Pretty friendly on the socials, so yeah, reach out.
Cool. Thank you so much, ladies. That was such an interesting conversation. I learned a lot. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, Jule from New Zealand and Sarah from Alaska. And I hope you ladies have a wonderful day.
Yeah,
you
Echo, thanks
too.
for having us.
All right. Bye.
Light your fire by the river, sleep on the ground. Ramble, 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 it's the only way back home. See the crows come and tell your story to the smoke. What can't hold itself up on the land, I say, let it go.
Well, that is a wrap. Sorry for the lack of podcasts. The last few months I've been really busy. I rejoined the American Packrafting Association board as the vice president, and we are in the very beginning of our end of the year giving campaign. I want to give a big shout out to the APA as the most important organization advocating for packrafters. If you haven't joined yet, you can join all this month for just $10 and also be entered in to win a bunch of cool prizes through Four Corners Guides and Buddy Boy Adventure Waste Kits. You can find the link to register in the bios of both Buddy Boy and Four Corners Guides on our Instagram pages and also in the show notes. And definitely head on over to the American Packrafting Association website right now. I know, immediacy, just trying to encourage you to give some cash and buy some raffle tickets for the huge end of the year giveaway that they're doing. The APA is giving away one of our courses, a 3-day pack rafting course of your choosing. And there are 2 alpaca rafts in the lineup, including their brand new, hasn't been launched yet, Chinook flatwater boat. So exciting. There's a Wrangell Mountain Air backcountry flight, a Go Wild backcountry fly-in and float adventure. Wow. An NRS dry suit and a pack raft. An immersion research dry suit, a Bad Larry Sockdolager backpack, a Big Wild Superior Wilderness Designs pack, and a Hyperlight mid tent, and a whole bunch of other cool things. So you can also find the link to that giveaway in the show notes. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this latest episode. I will try to get the next 2 shorts up in the next month. And yeah, thanks so much for listening and for being a fan of the Packrafting Life podcast.
If you want to download this podcast, we are finally on Apple as well as Spotify, and you can even find us in the NPR One app. There are also transcriptions of most of the episodes and show notes, links, and other information on our blog at fourcornersguides.com. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for who you want us to talk with, feel free to reach out to me anytime at thepackraftinglife@gmail.com. All right, have a wonderful fall full of paddling and adventures, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
There's no such thing as time, there's just wind and ice. Great grandma, she always said, leave extra tracks like a fox and go through this life like water round a rock. I see old hawk-eyed nephew, sister chestnut in the mud. Let's go quietly out of the woods, give the river some room to flood. 'Cause we all live downstream. We all live down